talk about Stoicism. These ancient thinkers didn't just keep a stiff upper lip. They turned it into an art form, a way of life, and possibly the world's first comprehensive self-help program. So, you want to unlock the ancient secrets of Stoicism? It's a philosophy so powerful, it's been embraced by emperors, prisoners of war, and modern CEOs alike. And if you have Stoic-type patience and can wait till the end, you're going to find out if Stoicism is the long-lost soulmate of Christianity or its most cunning adversary. So grab your togas or your most wrinkle-resistant business casual if you're feeling modernly Stoic and you're in your Ryan Holiday era. Because we're about to embark on a journey through the ultimate antidote to first world problems. So let's meet the star players who gave rise to this philosophy, the masters of meh. First up is Zeno. He is the ringmaster who started it all in 301 BC. So he ends up shipwrecked. It leaves him penniless in Athens, and he basically says, cool, I didn't need stuff anyway. And he founds this philosophy. That is a way of making lemonade out of life's lemons. So he begins teaching on this painted porch in Athens, which is where Stoicism gets its name. It's like if we name modern philosophies after coffee shops. Starbucksisms, anyone? The philosophy of burnt coffee. That would actually work for Stoicism. So he was the first one. Next up, we have Cleanthes. This is Zeno's star pupil and successor. And this guy was so dedicated to philosophy that he worked as a water carrier at night so he could study during the day. It's like the ancient Greek version of working a 24-hour diner to pay for college, except instead of a degree, he got enlightenment. And then we have Chrysippus, who systematizes Stoic philosophy. Legend has it he wrote over 700 books, none of which survived in full, but it's like he was the Stephen King of ancient philosophy, but with less horror and more logic puzzles. And then we have Panaetius, and along with Poseidonus, which is not a Greek god, and this dynamic duo brought Stoicism to Rome. So they are like the philosophical equivalent of those guys who introduced pizza to America, and they were just spreading delicious wisdom to the masses, except it wasn't really that delicious. Then you have Epictetus. He's the ex-slave who turns into this philosophical superstar. He's like the Stoic version of a rags to riches story, except the riches are inner peace and a killer ability to shrug off insults. His students wrote down his teachings, the discourses, and the Enchiridion. Enchiridion? Sounds like a mythical weapon. It's just a handbook. And then, more famously, we have Seneca. This is the Roman statesman who brought Stoicism to the political big leagues. And he's proof that you can be a philosopher and filthy rich, just don't get too attached to that wealth. Seneca was like the ancient Roman version of a celebrity life coach advising emperors, writing bestsellers. And then we have Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher empire, who wrote self-help notes to himself that accidentally became a timeless classic. It's like if your personal journal went viral, but 2,000 years after you died. And Marcus was the ultimate multitasker, ruling an empire, fighting barbarians, and practicing philosophy, all while maintaining a truly epic beard. So that's the cast of characters. Now let's meet the concepts that made Stoicism the darling of ancient philosophy. First is the dichotomy of control. This is the Stoics' #1 hit. Here's the basic idea. Some things are in our control, some aren't. Worrying about stuff you can't control is like trying to teach a cat to bark. It's pointless and slightly ridiculous. The Stoics say we should focus our energy on what we can control. Our judgments, our actions, and our attitudes. Everything else, let it go. It's like a philosophical Elsa from Frozen. The second big idea was virtue is the only true good. The Stoics argue that virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, self-control, that's the only thing that really matters. Everything else, wealth, health, reputation, those are nice to have, but they're in the don't sweat it category. It's like they're saying, sure, that new iPhone is cool, but have you tried being wise and just? It never needs a software update. And what's more Gucci than that? 3 was negative visualization. Imagine all the terrible things that could happen to you. No, the Stoics weren't competing for the most depressing philosophy. This practice called premeditation of evils is meant to make you appreciate what you have, but also to prepare you for when things go south. Kind of like a mental disaster preparedness, but instead of stocking up on canned goods and toilet paper, you're stockpiling gratitude and resilience. 4, living according to nature. Not to be confused with going en natural. This is about accepting the natural order of the universe and playing your part in it. It's about going commando through life. The Stoics believe that the universe is governed by a divine reason, logos, and by using our own reason, we can align ourselves with this cosmic order. It's like finding out the universe has a YouTube tutorial and you've had the link all along. 5, the view from above. Imagine looking at Earth from space. Suddenly, your problems seem pretty insignificant, right? It's like Google Earth, but for your ego. And this mental exercise helps put our troubles in perspective, and it reminds us that we're a part of something much bigger than ourselves. So next time you're stressed, just pretend you're an astronaut looking down at Earth, minus the cool spacesuit and freeze-dried ice cream. Then we have amore fati. This means love of fate, or love of one's own fate. It's the Stoic practice of not just accepting whatever happens to you, but actually embracing it as if you had chosen it. You're stuck in traffic? Amazing. More time to practice patience. Lost your job? Fantastic opportunity for personal growth. And then we have memento mori. Remember, you will die. John Wick, anyone? No, the Stoics weren't trying to bum you out. This reminder of our mortality was meant to help us focus on what's truly important and not waste time on petty concerns. It's like having a really morbid but effective life coach constantly whispering, "Is this really how you want to spend your very limited time on Earth?" But the Stoics didn't just philosophize. They wrote some of the ancient world's best self-help books. So let's check out these timeless bestsellers. First is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This is the OG of gratitude journals. Marcus reminds himself and us to stay humble, be good, and don't get worked up over little things. It's like if your grandpa's wisdom got mixed with a fortune cookie and became Emperor of Rome. Some of the choice quotes are, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Or, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." And then third, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It's all within yourself and your way of thinking." Second, Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. Seneca is writing to one of his buddies about how to live the good life. It's kind of like an ancient Roman Dear Abby, but with more talk about virtue and less about family drama. And Seneca's going to drop some wisdom bombs like, "We suffer more in our imagination than in reality. Luck is what happens when preparedness meets opportunity. He who is brave is free." And then we have Discourses and Encheiron by Epictetus. Imagine a no-nonsense life coach who's not afraid to call you out on your BS. That's him. He's here to remind you that your problems are probably your own fault, but hey, that means you can fix them. Some of his greatest hits were, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He who laughs at himself never runs out of things to laugh at. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Not too shabby. And the Stoics weren't just all talk, they walked the walk, even when the walk was more like a trek through a field of hot coals. So let's look at a few examples of Stoicism in action. First up, we've got Cato the Younger. And this Roman senator was so committed to his principles that he opposed Julius Caesar to the bitter end, even when it meant certain defeat. And when things got tough, he just got tougher, showing that Stoicism isn't about passivity, but standing firm in your convictions. Epictetus and his lamp. Someone stole his iron lamp. You know what he did? He simply replaced it with a clay one, reasoning that this would be less tempting to thieves. It's like the ancient equivalent of saying, "Someone stole my iPhone. I guess I'll bust out my Nextel." Beep beep, millennials. 3, Seneca's exile. When Emperor Claudius exiles Seneca, our boy doesn't throw a pity party. Instead, he uses the time to study and write, turning a potential career ending into a philosophical retreat. It's like turning a surprise staycation into a productive work-from-home opportunity. And then, of course, Marcus Aurelius, he's on the front lines. As Emperor, Marcus could have lounged about in Rome, but he spent much of his reign on the borders of the empire, defending against invasions, all while writing one of the greatest philosophical works of all time. It's like if your company CEO was also writing a self-help book while personally fighting off corporate raiders. So how about Stoicism in the modern world? Well, Stoicism has made a comeback faster than fanny packs and bad mustaches. Why? Because it turns out that even with all our modern conveniences, humans still need help dealing with life, or the cringy term that needs to be buried next to Seneca, adulting.
Even.
It's that feeling when your smartphone dies and you have to talk to people on the bus, or the existential crisis of choosing between 50 mustards at the supermarket, or the pain of your favorite TV show ending, their finale, anybody? Or the horror of someone not liking your Instagram post within 5 minutes, the agony of slow Wi-Fi connection when you're trying to binge watch your favorite show, the devastation of forgetting your reusable bags at the grocery store and having to pay for plastic ones. You get the point. And so Stoicism steps in and says, chill out. It's not that big of a deal. It's sort of like a philosophical cold shower for your overheated emotions. So here's the big question. Can the teachings of Jesus and the musings of Marcus Aurelius coexist in harmony? Believe it or not, Stoicism and Christianity have more in common than you might think. Sort of like they're distant cousins who keep running into each other at philosophical and theological family reunions. So let's look at some areas where these two worldviews might just fist bump. First is virtue is key. Both Stoics and Christians emphasize the importance of living a virtuous life. Now, they might define virtue slightly different, but both agree that character matters more than external circumstances. Second, stay with me on this one, acceptance of God's will. Stoics talk about aligning with the logos, divine reason, while Christians speak of submitting to God's will. It's like they're reading the same playbook, just with different team names. Third, indifference to worldly things. Both encourage detachment from material possessions and worldly status. It's like they both got the memo. You can't take it with you. And then self-control and discipline. Stoics and Christians alike value mastery over one's emotions and desires. It's sort of like a spiritual self-control boot camp. 5, focus on the present. Both emphasize living in the present moment rather than worrying about the future. It's mindfulness before mindfulness was the cool thing to do. Now, of course, it's not all philosophical kumbaya. There are some key differences that Christians should keep in mind when they're looking at Stoicism. And the first is the nature of God. Because Stoics see God as this impersonal, vague force, the logos. But as Christians, we believe in a personal, loving God. It's the difference between may the force be with you and Jesus loves you. Second, the problem of evil. Stoics accept everything as a part of the divine plan, while Christianity grapples with the problem of evil and free will. It's like the difference between everything happens for a reason and why do bad things happen to good people. 3, the afterlife. Stoics generally didn't believe in an afterlife, while it's a cornerstone of Christian faith. It's the ultimate to be or not to be question. Human nature. Stoics believed humans were naturally inclined towards reason and virtue, while Christianity teaches about original sin and the need for redemption. It's pull yourself up by your philosophical bootstraps versus we all need a little help from above. And then emotions. Stoics aimed for freedom from passions, while Christianity embraces emotions like love, joy, and righteous anger. It's the difference between keep calm and carry on and Jesus wept. So how could a Christian incorporate Stoic practices without compromising their faith? And so here's kind of a holy handbook for harnessing Hellenistic wisdom. First, Stoic journaling, but Christian style. Take a page from Marcus Aurelius' book, literally, and start a gratitude journal. Instead of just reflecting on your day, thank God for his blessings. It's like meditations, but it meets our daily bread. Number 2 is Virtuous Living 2.0. You can use Stoic techniques to cultivate Christian virtues. Practice courage by standing up for your faith, temperaments by resisting temptation, justice by treating others fairly, and wisdom by studying scripture. It's like a virtue vitamin supplement for your soul. And then divine dichotomy of control. Adapt the Stoic concept to align with Christian theology. Focus on what you can control, your actions, your attitudes, while trusting God with what you can't. It's sort of like the serenity prayer in action. 4, holy negative visualization. Instead of just imagining worst case scenarios, use this technique to appreciate God's blessing and trust in his provision. It's like spiritual disaster preparedness, but a side of gratitude. 5, cosmic perspective. Use the Stoic view from above to remind yourself of God's grand plan and your place in it. It's like Google Earth for your faith. And as we study church history, we find early Christian thinkers were quite fond of Stoic ideas. Clement of Alexandria, as a 2nd century theologian, was all about borrowing the best bits of Greek philosophy. He saw Stoicism as sort of a philosophical John the Baptist, preparing the way for Christian truth. St. Ambrose, the 4th century bishop, was so into Stoic ethics that he wrote a book called On the Duties of the Clergy, which was heavily influenced by Cicero's Stoic work, Diophysis. St. Augustine, the OG Christian philosopher, had a love-hate relationship with Stoicism. Like he admired their ethics but couldn't get on board with their view of God. It's like he was swiping right on Stoic morality but left on Stoic theology. So here are some ways Christians can apply Stoic principles to common situations without compromising their faith. First up, social media envy. Feeling jealous of your friend's perfect life on Instagram? Remember the Stoic principle of focusing on what you can control and give it a Christian twist. God has a unique plan for my life. It's not meant to look like anyone else's highlight reel. 2, work stress. Dealing with a difficult boss or coworker? Channel your inner Epictetus and focus on your actions and attitudes, then take it a step further and pray for them. It's like turning the other cheek, but with a side of self-reflection. And then financial worries. Anxious about money, inflation. Combine Stoic detachment from material things with trust in God's provision. It's like a kind of a faith-based financial planning strategy. Facing health issues, use Stoic acceptance to come to terms with what you can't change while relying on your faith for comfort and hope. It's a holistic approach to healing body, mind, and spirit. Relationship struggles? Having difficulty in relationships, apply Stoic principles of focusing on your own virtues and actions while also extending Christian love and forgiveness. It's like relationship counseling from Marcus Aurelius and Jesus. In the end, Stoicism can be a valuable tool for Christians, much like a philosophical gym where you can strengthen your spiritual muscles. Just remember, always filter Stoic ideas through the lens of your faith. It's like having a really wise, slightly pessimistic personal trainer for your soul. Listen to their advice, but remember that your ultimate coach is from above. So there you have it, folks. Stoicism, the philosophical equivalent of a keep calm and carry on poster, but with more togas and less tea. It's the ancient art of not letting life's little or big problems turn you into a human stress ball. And remember, the next time life gives you lemons, don't just make lemonade. Accept that lemons are part of life's grand citrus circus. Appreciate their sour beauty and maybe juggle them for a bit before calmly setting them aside. And when all else fails, do a cold plunge. It's the Stoic way.